Today, we have words like autism and Asperger's syndrome to describe people who think and see the world differently. These are modern words from modern science, but the people themselves are not modern. People with different minds have always been part of human history, living in every corner of the world, including the vast and diverse lands of ancient Asia. Long before doctors gave these conditions a name, societies had their own ways of understanding and explaining why some people were not like everyone else. They did not have the language of medicine we use today, but they saw the signs: a child who did not speak, a person lost in their own world, someone with a truly amazing, almost magical talent for one specific thing. When ancient people saw a child who did not make eye contact or who repeated the same movements over and over, they did not think of brain science. Instead, they looked to the world they knew, a world filled with gods, spirits, and the invisible laws of the universe. Their explanations were rooted in spirituality, philosophy, and ancient medical traditions. A person's unusual behavior could be a sign of many things. Perhaps it was a message from a past life, a consequence of actions long forgotten, or maybe it was the touch of a spirit, a mischievous one or a divine one bestowing a unique gift. These ancient ideas shaped how families and communities treated these individuals, creating a rich and complex story that is very different from our modern medical view. In this journey through time, we will explore the untold story of how ancient cultures in India, Nepal, Burma, Indonesia, and beyond viewed what we might now call autism. We will see that there was no single answer. In ancient India, life was seen as a long, continuous journey of the soul through many lifetimes. This idea, called reincarnation, was central to Hindu thought. So when a child was born with a condition that made them different, people often looked to the law of karma for an answer. Karma is the idea that the actions of your past lives affect your present one. A child who was withdrawn, nonverbal, or had challenging behaviors might be seen as living through the consequences of past deeds. This was not always seen as a punishment. It could also be viewed as a spiritual trial or a path the soul needed to walk to achieve balance. The ancient Indian system of medicine, known as Ayurveda, also offered its own explanations. Ayurveda, which means the science of life, is based on the idea of balance between three fundamental energies or doshas in the body: Vata, Pitta, Kapha. A condition with signs similar to autism might have been understood as a severe imbalance, particularly of Vata, which governs the nervous system and movement. An Ayurvedic physician or Vaidya would not have a word for autism, but they would observe the symptoms. They might diagnose it as a disturbance in the mind's ability to process sensory information. Their treatments would focus on restoring balance through diet, herbal remedies, oil massages, and calming routines, aiming to soothe the agitated mind and body. Family and community, the Kula and the Grama, played the most important role. Kula, Grama. In many cases, the joint family system provided a strong support network. A child with different needs would be cared for by grandparents, aunts, and uncles, not just the parents. They were often integrated into the daily life of the household and the village, protected and included. However, this was not always the case. If the behaviors were very disruptive or seen as a bad omen, a family might feel shame, leading to the person being hidden away or isolated from the community. The response was a mix of compassion and fear, inclusion and exclusion, all depending on the family's resources and the local community's beliefs about the specific signs being displayed. In the mountainous kingdom of Nepal, ancient beliefs were a rich tapestry, woven from Hindu philosophies, Buddhist philosophies, and indigenous shamanic traditions. This blend created a unique way of understanding people who were different. From the Hindu perspective, a child's condition could be linked to karma from a past life. It was seen as a destiny the family had to accept and manage with compassion. The Buddhist view put strong emphasis on karuna, compassion. A person with a severe developmental difference was seen as deserving of immense kindness. The community saw this as an opportunity to practice generosity and patience. Shamanic practices among Himalayan ethnic groups held influence. A shaman, Jankri or Dami, might interpret unusual behavior as spiritual. They might say the soul was lost or stolen, or that a forest spirit had become attached. The shaman performed rituals to call the soul back, or negotiate with the spirit. Families actively sought a cure. Rituals included chanting, drumming, and offerings. These rites gave hope and drew the community into the healing process. Further east in ancient Burma, now Myanmar, Theravada Buddhism shaped society. The core belief was dukkha, life is suffering, and the aim was to escape rebirth. A child with a significant disability could be seen as bearing heavy past karma. Still, compassion meant families and communities had a moral duty to care, and caring was a way to earn merit. Punya. Religious duty often became practical care. Monasteries served as sanctuaries. A Buddhist monastery, or kyang, was a refuge for those who didn't fit society. A quiet, withdrawn boy or man who preferred simple, repetitive routine might find a home there. Monastic life focused on meditation, chanting, and manual chores. A calming, supportive environment. For many families, giving their son to the monastery was an honorable choice, ensuring he was safe, cared for, and living a virtuous life, rather than isolated or neglected in a village. Across the vast archipelago of Indonesia and the East Indies, a vibrant mix of beliefs shaped the understanding of human differences. Before the widespread arrival of Islam, the region was a crossroads of Hindu, Buddhist, and local animist traditions. Animism, the belief that spirits inhabit everything from trees, rocks, animals, rivers, was particularly powerful. In this worldview, a child who was nonverbal, had repetitive behaviors, seemed to be in their own world was often thought to be under the influence of a spirit. This could be a benevolent ancestor offering a cryptic message, a mischievous nature spirit playing tricks. The community's first response was often to consult a spiritual expert to understand which spirit was involved and why. The treatments for these conditions were therefore deeply spiritual and ritualistic. If a malevolent spirit was suspected of causing the behavior, an exorcism ritual might be performed by a local healer or dukun. This ceremony could involve chanting, offerings of food and flowers, the use of special herbs and blessed water to persuade the spirit to leave the person's body. On the other hand, if the person's difference was seen as a connection to the spirit world, they might be treated with a certain reverence. Their unusual utterances could be interpreted as prophecies, their unique sensitivities seen as an ability to perceive things others could not. This made their place in the village complex. They could be feared one moment and respected the next. Beyond the spiritual realm, traditional medicine, known as jamu, played a vital role. This practice uses a vast knowledge of the region's rich plant life to create herbal remedies. For a child who was hyperactive, seemed constantly distressed, a dukun might prescribe calming teas made from specific leaves and roots. These remedies were designed to soothe the hot energies in the body and bring about a state of inner peace. This medical approach coexisted with the spiritual one. A family might simultaneously seek an herbal cure to calm the body and a ritual to appease the spirits, addressing the problem from every possible angle according to their worldview. The village community, or kampung, was the ultimate safety net. In the close-knit society of a traditional village, everyone knew everyone, and the concept of collective responsibility was strong. A family with a child who needed extra care would often receive help from neighbors. While there might be fear or misunderstanding, the communal nature of village life often meant that the person was rarely completely abandoned. They would be a familiar sight in the village, and people would learn to live with their eccentricities. This inclusive, if sometimes informal, system of care ensured that even those who were very different remained a part of the social fabric, protected by the web of community relationships. On the great island of Borneo, home to indigenous groups like the Dayak peoples, the rainforest and the spirit world shaped ideas about the mind. The line between the physical and the spiritual was thin. A person who was different, did not speak, intensely focused on patterns in nature or socially withdrawn, was not labeled disordered. Their state was explained by relationships with jungle spirits. Different thinking could signal closeness to the spirit world, able to see and hear things others could not. The shaman, or manang, was the interpreter. When a child showed unusual behaviors, the manang was called. They would communicate with spirits to find causes. It was believed a soul could wander or a powerful spirit companion could influence behavior. The shaman worked to restore balance for individual and community. Sometimes that unique person was seen as destined to be a shaman, a gift, not a deficit. Westward, the lands of modern Pakistan, ancient heartland of Hindu civilizations, Buddhist civilizations, the Indus Valley, and Gandhara cultures. Beliefs centered on karma, reincarnation, and Ayurvedic principles. Autism-like traits fit into this framework, seen as past life results and cared for by family and community. Savant skills might be read as divine blessing or remnant of past spiritual knowledge. From the 8th century, Islam began to spread. Karma gave way to belief in the will of Allah. A child with a disability was seen as part of God's plan, a test of faith. Emphasis shifted to submission and compassion in this life. Care for the vulnerable became a religious duty. Folk beliefs about spirits or jinn persisted, but formal religious teachings emphasized divine will, patience, and care, rather than blame. Looking back across the diverse cultures of ancient Asia, we can see common threads in how they approached minds that worked differently. One of the most powerful and widespread ideas was karma. In Hindu and Buddhist societies, from the plains of India to the mountains of Nepal and the coasts of Burma, karma provided a comprehensive explanation. It answered the difficult question of why, by placing the individual's condition within a grand cosmic cycle of cause and effect. This belief fostered a sense of acceptance. It was not a random tragedy but a part of a soul's long journey. It encouraged families to see their role as compassionate support. Another shared theme was deep community involvement. Indian joint family system, village kampung of Indonesia, Buddhist monastery, the burden of care was rarely left to the parents alone. Communities often created a supportive environment built on relationships and religious duties. This was not a formal system of social services but an organic one built on relationships and religious obligations. At the same time, these cultures often saw a special light in the darkness. The ability of a nonverbal person to solve complex problems or recall vast amounts of information was not overlooked. It was frequently interpreted as a divine gift, a sign of being God-touched or spiritually advanced, which could grant the person a unique and respected place in society. Of course, the ancient response was not always positive. Fear of the unknown was as human then as it is now. Behaviors that were too disruptive or strange could lead to explanations involving malevolent spirits, curses, or bad omens. This could result in harsh treatments like exorcisms, or in the person being isolated and hidden away from the world out of shame or fear. The interpretation of the behavior as a divine gift or a demonic curse, a spiritual trial, or a source of shame depended entirely on the specific culture, the local beliefs, and the nature of the individual's traits. There was no single ancient Asian experience but a spectrum of responses ranging from sacred reverence to fearful exclusion. Today, the medical model of autism, based on neurology and genetics, is becoming more known across Asia. Yet these ancient beliefs have not vanished. They continue to exist alongside modern science, often in the same family and even in the same person. A parent might take their child to a doctor for therapy while also visiting a temple or a shaman for blessings. This blending of old and new shows how deeply these cultural worldviews are ingrained. Understanding this history, the stories of karma, spirits, community, and divine gifts, is essential. It helps us see that for centuries these societies have been trying to find a place for every kind of mind, using the wisdom they had. The journey continues today, but its roots run deep into the past.